Hello everyone and welcome to Hockey Hub. I'm Brendan and today we're doing a standings prediction and we are looking at the Central Division. Now obviously with the realigned divisions, the Central Division, a lot of these teams aren't exactly central like the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers. But that being said, I think this division is still going to be a lot of fun. You know, having Tampa and Dallas in the same division after their meet up in the Stanley Cup Finals I think is going to be a lot of fun and could even brew a bit of a rivalry there since there's already some familiarity with that, tough and grinding Stanley Cup final. So this division, I think, is going to be one of the more interesting ones to watch, but we're going to start off with number 8. At number 8, I have the Detroit Red Wings. Now, I know some teams are actually picking Detroit to finish like 7th, but I still think that their overall roster is so bad that they're likely still going to be the worst team in the NHL. I mean, it is rare for teams to finish worse in back-to-back years, but, think back to when Colorado was still, a very bad team. They had that horrible regular season in 2016-2017. When they bounced back the next year, you could kind of see it coming. Like, they had McKinnon, and I get that McKinnon wasn't what he was, but they had McKinnon, they had Rantanen and Landeskog. Like, there were good pieces there. And I'm not saying that there aren't good pieces in Detroit, but I don't think that Larkin and Bertuzzi and Mantha are quite the caliber of those players. There's serious questions about those defense, and although I think the defense is going to get a little bit better with a guy like Moritz Seider coming in and the additions of Troy Stecher and John Merrill, I don't think that defense is anything more than bottom 5 in the NHL. Their goaltending tandem did improve with the likes of Thomas Greiss and Jonathan Bernier, but that being said, once again, their goaltending isn't the strongest, and Greiss's record probably isn't going to look the greatest, but he is going to do a better job of keeping them in games than Jimmy Howard did. Detroit's season kind of depends on what rookies come in. If Philip Zadina can come in and have a good sophomore year, that's probably going to make Detroit look better. And then there's also the likes of Lucas Raymond and Joe Veleno. To me, I think Joe Veleno is getting close to being NHL ready, and he can definitely push for a center spot considering how weak they are at the center position, aside from a guy like Dylan Larkin. Lucas Raymond being the 4th overall pick in the draft, obviously is going to get a lot of attention. He might end up playing in the Swedish League for the remainder of the season, and I think that's okay for his development. Truthfully, Detroit knows themselves that they don't have any aspirations of competing this season, but if Raymond can come in next year, he could end up being a favorite for the Calder Trophy. So Detroit does have a bright future, but for now, I think they're probably in for another miserable regular season. At number 7, I have the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, the Chicago Blackhawks are the only team that I could maybe see finishing behind Detroit, but that being said, I still think that the likes of Patrick Kane, Alex DeBrincat, Dominic Kubalik, and Duncan Keith are still going to, keep them a little bit ahead of Detroit. Losing Kirby Dach and likely Jonathan Toews for the entire regular season is a massive blow and is very disappointing for Chicago fans and hockey fans alike. Kirby Dach's injury in the preliminary game of the World Junior Tournament was just super unfortunate. It's a shame that a young player like him is going to miss his entire second year, and a lot of things were expected of Dach. So hopefully he can come in next season in his 3rd year and have a really great year, and hopefully that injury doesn't set him back. Jonathan Toews is a bit more of an interesting case though. He's dealing with an undiagnosed disease that has made him very fatigued and with a lack of motivation. There's been some speculation of what it is, but I don't want to get into that. I'm just wishing the best for his health and for a speedy recovery, and hopefully he can get back on the ice quick on his own terms, though. I'm hoping that Jonathan Toews can return to the ice, but realistically I don't see it happening this season, so basically Chicago lost their top 2 centers for the entire season. Having guys like Patrick Kane and Alex DeBrincat are still going to make this offense quite good. Dylan Strome is probably going to have a big year as well, since he is kind of the first-line center now, but their goaltending is probably the worst in the NHL with Malcolm Subban and Colin Delia. I just think that their goals against might actually end up being last in the NHL. I think Detroit will probably still finish last in this division, but I think that they aren't going to get blown out every night, whereas Chicago, there's going to be some rough nights for the defensive zone. At number 6, I have the Florida Panthers. Now, the Florida Panthers are a team that everybody always picks to finally make the postseason, and it just never seems to happen. So this year, I'm not even going to bother with saying that they might make it. And of course, this would be the year that they actually end up making it, since it seems most people kind of feel the same as I do, that Florida probably isn't making it. They would need a major bounce-back season from Sergei Bobrovsky, who was simply terrible in his first year with Florida. Their forward core is it's interesting because you've got Alexander Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau, who are 2 of the best forwards in the entire NHL. But after that, it gets a little bit scarce. Anthony Duclair is a good addition, but aside from that, Alexander Wenberg and, maybe a rookie coming in like Owen Tippett, they're really depending on some of these rookies to come in and play true top six roles. So their overall forward depth really isn't that good aside from a couple of stars, which obviously those guys are fantastic and is going to, bring Florida probably close to a 500 record. But then you look at that defense and there's some questions there. Offensively, I don't have questions about the Florida defense. Keith Yandel and Aaron Ekblad both put up good numbers, but both those guys, have their mistakes in the defensive zone. Thankfully for Florida, they were able to re-sign Mackenzie Weegar, as he's probably their best defensive defenseman, but I still just don't think that this is the year Florida finally gets past that hump and makes the postseason. And at number 5, I have the Nashville Predators. Now, this is kind of a hot take because Nashville's roster is still pretty decent, and they still boast one of the best top fours in the NHL. But I just got this feeling that Nashville is, going to miss the playoffs this year. I think they're on a bit of a downhill trend. Their goaltending I have questions about. Some people are really high on UC Saros, and he did have a good year, but I'm unsure of his ability to be a true starter, and I think Pekka Rinne's best years are definitely behind him. That being said, I don't expect Rinne to be as bad as he was this past season, but I also probably don't expect Saros to put up as good numbers as he did. Their forward core always seems to underperform, and it's probably gotten even a little bit weaker with the departure of a guy like Craig Smith. So Nashville is always a team that's starved for goals, and they always prevent a lot of goals with how strong that defense is, but I think their goaltending isn't as strong as it once was, and I just got this feeling that Nashville could end up missing the postseason. I could be completely wrong, and Nashville could end up finishing top 3 in the division, but that's kind of the fun of these predictions, right? At number 4, just squeaking into the playoffs, I have the Dallas Stars. Now, I think it's going to be a dogfight between Dallas and Nashville for that final position, and despite all of Dallas's injuries, I'm going to have to give it to them. I get that their goaltending isn't the strongest, since Jake Ottinger is likely going to have to be the backup, but he was a first-round pick for a goaltender, so maybe he's going to be able to come in and actually provide some good starts for Dallas. Anton Hudobin, he showed what he can do in the playoffs, and although I don't expect him to be that good, I'm sure he'll be able to bear the load of a starter for a little bit. Losing Tyler Seguin is a major blow, though, and is why I think, it's probably either them or Nashville for that 4th spot, but I still think that their defense is so strong, with the likes of Heiskanen, Klingberg, and Esa Lindell, mixed with some really good forwards there like Rupe Hintz, hopefully a bounce-back season from Jamie Benn and Alexander Radulov as well. Dallas is a team that's very well coached by Rick Bowness as well, so even though that there's some serious holes in this roster due to injury, I just think that there's a kind of a winning atmosphere around there, and I think they'll be able to just squeak into the postseason. And at number 3, I have the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, there's a lot of questions surrounding the Columbus Blue Jackets right now due to the whole Pierre-Luc Dubois situation, but that doesn't change the fact that Columbus still always ices a really solid roster. Their defense is really good with Seth Jones and Zach Werenski, and their goaltending tandem is very good with Joonas Korpisalo and Elvis Merzlikins. There are some questions with the forward core, but I think bringing in Max Domi is going to provide a lot more offense than what Josh Anderson did, and I think the forward core did get stronger for the most part this offseason. Losing Gustav Nyquist to injury for what could be, the large part of the year does hurt, though. So I think that the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation might hang over their heads a little bit, but, when John Tortorella is your head coach, he always coaches teams to a good record, and I think Columbus's team is going to play hard, and I think that they're probably going to end up finishing top 3 in the division. At number 2, I have the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, the Carolina Hurricanes are another team that's very well coached by their head coach Rod Brind'Amour, but their roster is a lot better than Columbus's on paper. Carolina's offense is very deadly with the likes of Sebastian Aho, Tara Vinen, and Andrei Svechnikov, but also some rookies that are rookies last season that could have a better impact in their sophomore year, like Martin Netkas. So I think that their forward core is really good, a very strong top 6. There's some good depth guys there as well, like Warren Fogle and Jordan Martinook, but the top 4, 1 through 6 really, is the very strong part about Carolina. Dougie Hamilton is an amazing defenseman and is definitely top 10 in the NHL. The contract situation with him could kind of hang over their heads as well, but Hamilton has already said that he wants to stay in Carolina. Jacob Slavin, for my money, is the best defensive defenseman in the NHL, and he's always going to provide a positive impact, not to mention the guys like Brady Shea, Hayden Fleury, and Brett Pesce. Goaltending is where I have a question with Carolina, though, and is what I think holds them back from finishing first in this division, as Peter Mrazek and James Reimer is probably a bottom 10 tandem in the NHL. But their overall roster is so solid, they've got so much star power to go along with good depth, and a very good coach in Rod Brind'Amour that I think Carolina is going to have a very good record. And at number 1, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, despite the fact that the Tampa Bay Lightning is going to miss Nikita Kucherov for the entirety of the regular season, they're still probably the best team in the NHL on paper. For my money, Andrei Vasilevskiy is the best goaltender in the NHL, and although some analytics fans disagree with that, to me I think Vasilevskiy just proved it even more in the postseason this past year. He played every single game, every single minute for the Tampa Bay Lightning, put up really good numbers, and obviously led them to the Stanley Cup. So I think Andrei Vasilevskiy is going to have another really good regular season. Probably going to end up leading the NHL in wins since Curtis McElhinney isn't the strongest backup anymore, but Tampa Bay's defense is still amazing. Sergachev is only going to get better after having another year under his belt, and although they did lose a guy like Kevin Shattenkirk, a rookie like Cal Foote might be able to come in there and replace some of what Shattenkirk brought. Victor Hedman is still the best defenseman in the NHL, and I probably predict him to be their MVP this upcoming season, but having a healthy Steven Stamkos is going to be exciting for the Tampa Bay Lightning as well. Steven Stamkos is probably going to play the right wing alongside Braden Point, so he is going to try and replicate what Nikita Kucherov brings, and I think Stamkos, still has all the offensive talent in the world. He's still an amazing player, and even though they're losing Kucherov for the entirety of the season, Tampa Bay already proved that they can lose a star player and still be a really good team, since they played without Stamkos for most of the playoffs last year. So they still got Braden Point, they still got Andre Palat, Anthony Cirelli, they've gotten these guys signed to these contracts. So they were able to really keep the team together for the most part. Obviously, losing Kucherov is going to be a big blow, but they can put his money on the LTIR and still ice one of the best rosters in the NHL. So I still think that Tampa Bay is likely going to finish first in this division. The only team I could see them kind of competing with would be Carolina, but I think Carolina's goaltending isn't strong enough to finish ahead of Tampa. This is providing Tampa doesn't come into any major injuries like Andrei Vasilevskiy, but only time's going to tell. But that does it for today's video. I appreciate you guys watching till the end. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.